95 days. That is how long remains before the opening match of World Cup 2026 kicks off on June 11th in Los Angeles. The greatest sporting spectacle on the planet. 48 nations, 104 matches. A tournament that was supposed to rewrite football history. Instead, something extraordinary is happening, something this sport has never quite seen before. Parliaments are debating withdrawal. Petitions are breaking records. Football federations that have never once questioned participation in a World Cup are now sitting in emergency meetings, choosing their words with the care of diplomats. And at the center of it all is a man who has never kicked a football professionally in his life. Welcome to Daily Brief. Stay with me for the next few minutes because what I am about to show you reaches far beyond sport. It touches sovereignty, power, global alliances, and a question that is splitting the world in two. Should you play on the field of someone who is actively threatening your country? If you are new here, subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because what is unfolding over the coming months will be one of the defining stories of 2026, and we will be here breaking it down every step of the way. Let us go back, not decades, not even years. Rewind just a few months to the moment this stopped being a sporting debate and became something far heavier. It began, as so many crises do, with a silence that should have been a warning. In the spring of 2025, the White House quietly formed a task force dedicated entirely to FIFA World Cup 2026. The chair of that task force was not a sports administrator. It was not a diplomat. It was Donald Trump himself. J.D. Vance was named vice chair. Andrew Giuliani, son of Rudy Giuliani, became its executive director. And Gianni Infantino, president of FIFA, the organization theoretically charged with protecting football from political interference, became a regular presence in the corridors of the White House. He was there on election night in November 2024. He was at the inauguration on January 20th, 2025, where he spoke openly about working together to make not only America great again, but the entire world. Stop for a second. Read that back. The president of world football standing at a presidential inauguration, repeating a campaign slogan. That is the moment the alarm should have sounded, but it got louder. In July 2025, FIFA opened an official office inside Trump Tower. Let that image sit with you. The governing body of the world's most popular sport with a listed address inside a presidential skyscraper. Then came the Club World Cup final on July 13th, 2025. Chelsea won. And when the trophy ceremony began, Trump stayed on the podium. Cole Palmer, Reece James, players who had trained their whole lives for this moment, looked visibly uncertain as a sitting president moved through their celebration. Trump took a medal and slipped it into his suit pocket. The images spread instantly. The optics were unmistakable. Then, on December 5th, 2025, at the official World Cup draw in Washington, Infantino presented Trump with the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize, an award titled Football Unites the World, an award created specifically and only days after Trump renewed threats regarding Greenland. Several FIFA Council members reportedly learned of the prize's existence through a press release, according to reporting from multiple outlets. Human rights group Fair Square filed a formal complaint with FIFA's Ethics Committee. Infantino dismissed the criticism, stating that Trump objectively deserved recognition. He then announced that Trump himself would personally present the World Cup trophy to the champions on July 19th, 2026. Not a head of state in a neutral host city following protocol, the president of the hosting nation handing over football's ultimate prize on camera in front of 4 billion viewers. That is not a sporting event. That is a platform. And Europe saw it. And Europe started talking. Announcement number 1. The Dutch petition that shattered records. In the Netherlands, a petition was launched by a prominent journalist arguing that Dutch participation in World Cup 2026 would turn players into unwilling symbols in a political campaign. Within days, more than 156,000 Dutch citizens had signed it. To put that into context, that represents one of the largest football-related civic petitions in Dutch history. The Royal Dutch Football Association, the KNVB, has so far declined to commit to a boycott, stating it will continue monitoring developments. But 156,000 signatures do not disappear. That number sits on every federation desk like a stone. You do not get 156,000 signatures about a sporting event unless something far deeper is going on. The Dutch are not signing a petition about football. They are signing a petition about what football has been made to represent. Received. Announcement number 1. Announcement number 2. Germany on the edge. Germany is one of the most successful teams in World Cup history, 4 titles, a passionate, travel-hungry fan base. And as reported by Bild in January 2026, CDU lawmaker Jürgen Hart publicly stated that Germany's national team might consider skipping the tournament as a last resort, his words, to bring Trump to his senses. Another CDU politician, Roderick Kiesewetter, told Augsburger Allgemeine that given Trump's Greenland-related tariff threats, he had a hard time imagining that European countries would take part in the World Cup. Then came Oke Göttlich, vice president of the German Football Association, chairman of FC St. Pauli. Speaking to Hamburger Morgenpost, he said it was time to, and I am quoting his reported words here, seriously consider and discuss a boycott. He compared the current moment to the Olympic boycotts of the Cold War era, and then he said something that should stop everyone cold. He said that by his reckoning, the potential threat is greater now than it was then. A German football official saying the threat level in 2026 exceeds the threat level of the Cold War. Let that settle. A survey conducted in Germany found that 47% of the population would support a boycott if the United States were to attempt to annex Greenland, nearly 1 in 2 Germans, in a country where football is not a pastime but a religion. The German government officially stated on January 20th that the decision would rest with the National Federation. That is not a green light, but it is not a red light either. It is a door left conspicuously open. Received. Announcement number 2. Announcement number 3. It is not just Germany. It is everywhere. In the United Kingdom, Conservative Member of Parliament Simon Hoare addressed the House of Commons directly, calling on England, Scotland, and Wales to boycott the tournament in order to, his words as reported, embarrass Donald Trump. Liberal Democrat MP Layla Moran argued that public pressure may be the only language certain leaders understand. France's Sports Minister Marina Ferrari said as of late January that there is no desire for a boycott. But then she added something telling. She said she would not anticipate what could happen. That is a carefully constructed political sentence. That is a minister leaving herself room. In France, left-wing politician Eric Coquerel went further. He publicly asked whether anyone could imagine going to play the World Cup in a country that attacks its neighbors, threatens to invade Greenland, undermines international law, and wants to torpedo the United Nations. He also proposed shifting hosting duties to Canada and Mexico entirely. That proposal has gained no official traction, but the fact that it is being floated in the French Parliament tells you how far this debate has traveled. Spain has not been silent either. Spanish government officials have raised the possibility of Luis de la Fuente's European champions reconsidering their participation. Spain, the defending champions, not a fringe voice, not a protest account on social media. Government officials, and across the continent, a We Move Europe petition calling for a formal EU boycott gathered significant momentum, arguing that a withdrawal would damage the United States economically and embarrass the Trump administration on a global stage. Received. Announcement number 3. But here is the part that most coverage is missing. The European backlash did not start with football. It started with a cascade of geopolitical events that transformed how much of the world perceives the United States in 2025 and 2026. Trump threatened tariffs of 10% on goods from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland. He repeatedly suggested that Canada could become the 51st state. He warned of potential military action against Mexico. He openly and repeatedly pushed for the seizure of Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark and a NATO ally. And then came January 3rd, 2026, Operation Absolute Resolve. More than 150 U.S. military aircraft deployed to Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro and his wife captured and flown to New York for trial. 32 Cuban soldiers reportedly killed in the operation. The United States announcing it would administer Venezuela going forward. International reaction was immediate and polarized. Supporters called it decisive. Critics called it the unilateral arrest of a sitting head of state and a precedent with terrifying implications for international law. Analysts warned in subsequent weeks that the Venezuela operation could provide rhetorical cover for other major powers to justify their own interventions. Russia in Ukraine, China, and Taiwan. The logic was simple and devastating. If the world's leading democracy can arrest a foreign president and administer another sovereign nation, what argument remains against anyone else doing the same? Against that backdrop, European football federations were not just debating sports policy. They were weighing whether sending their athletes to Washington was a political endorsement. Not in theory, In practice, in front of 4 billion cameras, and that is before you address what immigration enforcement means for the tournament itself. During preparations for the 2025 Club World Cup, members of Iran's delegation reportedly struggled to secure visas, with only 4 of 9 officials granted entry for the December 2025 draw. Incidents involving asylum seekers detained near MetLife Stadium during that tournament sent a chill through international football circles. For supporters traveling from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, uncertainty about entry procedures has become not a footnote but a central conversation. According to reporting cited by multiple outlets, ICE enforcement anxieties and sky-high ticket prices have already begun suppressing what should be record-breaking international travel demand to the host cities. Kansas City, one of the host venues, is reportedly struggling with hotel room capacity. Boycott calls are growing louder in Europe, and the visa restrictions are narrowing the flow of international fans before a single match has been played. If you follow Daily Brief for our geopolitical breakdowns, now is the time to share this video, because this story is not being covered with the depth it deserves. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think about where this is heading. Every comment matters, and I read each one. Before we go deeper, let us be precise about the economic stakes sitting underneath this entire debate, because the numbers are staggering and they explain why a full boycott remains unlikely no matter how loud the rhetoric gets. FIFA projects roughly $10 billion in revenue from World Cup 2026. That is not a typo. $10 billion flowing through broadcasters, sponsors, hotel chains, airlines, and host cities. The tournament features 104 matches across 16 stadiums, 78 in the United States alone. The host country's economy absorbs the majority of that financial footprint. Contracts between FIFA, host cities, national federations, and commercial partners were signed years in advance. The legal and financial penalties for withdrawal at this stage are not abstract. They are concrete, they are massive, and they fall on the federations themselves. Major kit sponsors like Adidas, Nike, and Puma have invested hundreds of millions in athlete deals tied directly to World Cup 2026 visibility. Broadcasters have paid enormous rights fees for access to this specific tournament. If Germany's national team does not show up, Adidas, a German company, loses one of its flagship marketing moments of the decade. The financial pressure pushing toward participation is not coming from politicians or FIFA alone. It is coming from the commercial ecosystem that surrounds elite football. And yet, the pressure pushing in the other direction is coming from somewhere that money does not easily reach. It is coming from citizens, from 156,000 Dutch signatures, from nearly half of Germany's population, from British parliamentarians raising the issue in the House of Commons, from African columnists drawing direct comparisons to the 1976 Montreal Olympics boycott against apartheid South Africa. That boycott is remembered today as one of sport's most consequential political acts. It did not end apartheid immediately, but it shifted the moral architecture of the conversation. It made non-participation into a form of statement that could not be ignored. History moves slowly, and then it moves all at once. Let us talk about Infantino, because you cannot analyze this story without understanding the man standing at the exact intersection of football and political power. Gianni Infantino has positioned FIFA closer to American executive power than at any point in the organization's history. The office in Trump Tower, the FIFA Peace Prize, the public statements about making the world great again, the announcement that Trump will personally hand over the World Cup trophy. Each one individually is debatable. Together, they form a pattern. And here is what that pattern means for the teams and the federations trying to navigate this moment. If you compete, you play in a tournament chaired by the sitting president of the host nation in front of a FIFA president who has awarded him a peace prize for a trophy that he will personally hand to the champions on global television. If you win, you shake his hand. If you lift the cup, his face is in the photograph forever. That is not hypothetical. That is the stated plan. Infantino confirmed it. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter, largely absent from public life since leaving office amid scandal, made a significant intervention by backing Swiss lawyer Mark Pieth's call for fans to avoid traveling to the United States for the tournament. As reported across multiple outlets, Blatter's intervention was notable precisely because he carries no official power. His voice signals that even veterans of football governance feel this moment is exceptional, that even people who have seen everything feel that this particular entanglement crosses a line. Now let us talk about what this means for real people, not federations, not politicians, not diplomats. If you are a German fan who has spent 2 years saving for World Cup 2026, you are now being told by nearly half your country that going is morally complicated. If you are a Dutch player who has trained for this moment since childhood, you are being asked to carry a debate you never started. If you are a supporter from Ghana or Morocco or South Korea planning to fly to New York or Dallas or Seattle, you are calculating not just the cost of tickets, but the risk at the border. And if you are an American city that has invested millions in infrastructure, hospitality, and planning for an event that was supposed to unite the world under your skyline, you are watching empty hotel rooms and watching the optics deteriorate in slow motion. The United States has its own deeply divided relationship with this tournament. American lawmakers have raised concerns that aggressive immigration enforcement during the competition could inflict lasting damage on the country's global image. Human rights organizations, including Human Rights Watch, the ACLU, and the NAACP, have cautioned publicly that global sporting events can become stages for political narratives that harm both athletes and spectators from vulnerable communities. Kansas City, one of the domestic host venues, is reportedly struggling with hotel inventory for the expected surge in visitors. And the visa crisis is not hypothetical. It is already affecting operational planning. The soft power calculation here is genuinely complex. The United States has historically used major global events to project openness, diversity, and cultural dynamism. The 1994 World Cup, also hosted in the U.S., is widely credited with helping launch football as a mainstream sport in America. The 1996 Atlanta Olympics were framed as a celebration of American democratic values. Hosting the 2026 World Cup was supposed to cement a similar legacy, a renewed commitment to global engagement at a moment when that commitment has faced significant doubt internationally. Instead, the tournament risks becoming the opposite of soft power. It risks becoming the most expensive political advertisement ever made. One where the association between the host nation's foreign policy and the world's most beloved sport is not incidental but deliberate and documented. The White House Task Force, the Trump Tower FIFA office, the Peace Prize, the trophy handover, these are not accidents. They form a coherent strategy of association, and the world is reading that strategy with remarkable clarity. Soft power works when the audience believes the message is genuine. When the audience starts to see the mechanism behind the message, it stops working and starts working against you. According to projections, the 2026 World Cup was expected to generate approximately $10 billion in economic activity for the United States and create more than 290,000 jobs. 78 matches are scheduled in American cities, 13 in Canada, and 13 in Mexico. The contracts are signed. The infrastructure is being built. FIFA and the U.S. Soccer Federation have committed enormous sums to logistics, broadcasting, and security. This is not a tournament that can simply be relocated, which means the federations considering boycotts know exactly what they are contemplating. They are not threatening to walk away from nothing. They are threatening to walk away from the greatest event in world football, and that threat is not moving faster than the deteriorating optics on the ground. Football has been here before, not identically, but close enough to know how the story can go. There's another dimension to this story that the boycott debate tends to obscure: the athletes themselves, the players, not the federations, not the politicians, the 22 people on the pitch. History offers a model that is neither participation nor boycott. It is something harder and more interesting than either. At the 1978 World Cup in Argentina, Dutch player Wim Rijsbergen visited the Plaza de Mayo in a gesture of solidarity with the mothers of the disappeared, women searching for children taken by the military dictatorship. He did not boycott. He showed up, and then he made his position impossible to misread. At Qatar 2022, members of the German national team covered their mouths during the official team photograph in protest of FIFA's decision to ban the One Love armband. The gesture was seen globally. It did not change FIFA's decision, but it entered history as a moment of visible dissent on the world's largest stage. In the 1980s, Corinthians, a Brazilian football club, built an entirely democratic internal structure during the military dictatorship, players, staff, and workers all voting on club decisions. It was called Corinthians democracy. It was football as resistance from the inside, not retreat from the outside. These examples matter because they suggest a third path that is missing from the current binary debate. Not boycott, not silent participation, but something athletes and federations could actively choose: show up and refuse to be used. Wear a symbol. Speak before the cameras. Decline the podium ceremony. Walk off the stage when the trophy presentation begins to look like a political commercial. These are all actions that individual players and teams have the agency to take. They carry risk. FIFA has shown it will punish political expression on the pitch, but the scale of the audience in 2026 means that any act of visible dissent would reach a size that makes enforcement politically catastrophic for FIFA itself. The question is whether the players, who have the most at stake personally and the least institutional protection, are willing to carry that weight. Some already are. The conversation is happening inside dressing rooms right now. It is not all public, but it is happening. Now let us look at what the United States itself is risking. The 1978 World Cup was hosted by Argentina under a military dictatorship. German legend Paul Breitner warned before the tournament that athletes should not become pawns in political games. The world competed. The Argentine junta used the tournament to project stability and legitimacy. Johan Cruyff refused to go, not officially for political reasons, but he never played for the Netherlands in Argentina, and the debate about what his presence might have meant has never fully ended. The 1980 Moscow Olympics. The United States led a boycott to protest the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. More than 60 nations stayed away. The Soviet Union competed regardless. Many American athletes lost their only chance at an Olympic medal. 4 years later, the Soviets boycotted Los Angeles in retaliation. 2 boycotts, thousands of careers affected. Neither one changed the underlying geopolitical reality. Russia hosted the 2018 World Cup 18 months after the annexation of Crimea. Qatar hosted in 2022 amid devastating evidence of migrant worker deaths and systemic human rights abuses. FIFA has awarded the 2034 tournament to Saudi Arabia despite ongoing international criticism of that country's record on human rights, gender rights, and labor conditions. Every one of those tournaments went ahead. Every one of them was watched by billions. The Washington Post has assessed the likelihood of a full-scale boycott of World Cup 2026 as extremely low, and the financial and contractual reality supports that assessment. But here is what is different this time. This is not a tournament being held in a country that has a complicated human rights record in theory. This is a tournament being held in a country that has levied tariffs against its closest NATO allies, threatened to annex a sovereign European territory, captured and removed a foreign head of state through military force, and whose president has publicly declared the tournament part of his personal legacy and will be standing on the podium on July 19th to hand the trophy to the champions. The debate is no longer theoretical. It is logistical. Federations, broadcasters, sponsors, and governments are making calculations right now, not abstract ones, real ones, with legal teams and risk assessments, and Iran appears to be heading toward the most concrete position of any nation. Iran's sports minister has stated the country has no possibility of participating, according to reporting across multiple outlets. That would make Iran the first nation to formally withdraw from a World Cup finals in the modern era over explicitly political grounds related to the United States. The reverberations of that decision, if it holds, will be significant. I see 2 paths from here, and there is no comfortable middle ground between them. Path 1. FIFA and the U.S. State Department move quickly and visibly to address the visa crisis. They create guaranteed, transparent entry procedures for fans from every participating nation. The European federations, Germany, the Netherlands, England, Spain, choose to compete but use the platform publicly. Athletes cover their mouths, captains wear armbands. A visible, coordinated form of protest takes place on the biggest stage in sport. World Cup 2026 proceeds. It is messy, it is contested, but it happens. And the images that travel around the world are of footballers, not politicians, claiming the stage as their own. Path 2. The geopolitical situation continues to deteriorate. Trump moves further on Greenland. The Venezuela precedent is cited by another major power to justify its own military action. A visa incident involving a prominent national team delegation goes badly and publicly wrong. Germany announces it will not participate. The Netherlands follows. Spain and France face unbearable domestic pressure. The dominoes do not all fall, but enough of them do. And World Cup 2026 becomes a diminished tournament, overshadowed by its own controversy, with half-empty stands in some venues and a trophy ceremony that turns into the most photographed political moment of the decade. I think Path 1 is still more likely, but I thought something similar about the Club World Cup ceremony, and then Trump took a medal and put it in his pocket. History has a way of accelerating past our expectations. On July 19th, 2026, someone will lift the World Cup trophy in a stadium somewhere in the United States. Billions will watch. The question is not who lifts it. The question is who else is on the podium, and whether the player holding the trophy is celebrating football's greatest prize or navigating football's most complicated political moment. Subscribe to Daily Brief if you want to follow this story as it develops. We are not leaving it here. As federations make decisions, as visa policies evolve, as the tournament draws closer, we will be breaking down every move. Hit the notification bell so you do not miss the next analysis. And like this video if it gave you a clearer picture of what is actually at stake. Now I want to hear from you. Should European teams refuse to participate if geopolitical tensions continue to rise? Or should they compete and use the platform of 4 billion viewers to make their position impossible to ignore? Is a boycott meaningful leverage? Or does it punish athletes who have given everything for this moment and change absolutely nothing about the political reality on the ground? And the question underneath all of it, when the dust settles on July 19th, 2026, will the world look at the country that hosted the biggest tournament in football history and see a celebration of global sport? Or will it see something else entirely? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I will see you in the next breakdown.